The following program is paid for by Barbara Arnwine.
The views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the hosts and guests and do not necessarily reflect the views of Urban One Incorporated, Radio One, or any of its subsidiary companies.
It's time now for Igniting Change, a weekly provocative and empowering program where you, the listener, can ignite change. Now here's your host, Barbara Arnwine.
Get up, stand up.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Igniting Change. Oh, we are so happy that you're joining us today because we have a great show. Yes, yes, yes. You're going to be so amazed by the young people who are going to be speaking on this show and the amazing activism they're doing. But before I go any further, let me bring up my mighty co-hosts because we have a couple things we want to talk to you in common about as we open the show, and that is none other than the leader of the He is the chair of the board of the Transformative Justice Coalition, one of our nation's boldest, most aggressive, most amazing lawyers. He is one of our great leaders of TJC. We're so glad that he's there doing this wonderful work. Hey, Daryl Jones, how are you, Attorney Daryl Jones?
Hey, Barbara, it must be Tuesday, must be noon Eastern Standard Time because we're talking igniting change. And Barbara, goodness, this is an incredible show that we're going to have this afternoon featuring some students out of North Carolina, A&T University. But Barbara, we say all the time that, week after week, it's amazing the amount of things that happen, the amount of changes that occur, the amount of issues that come up. We're coming straight off this MLK Day celebration. Some folks are still in it because they're going to be doing it all week long, Barbara, different types of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. celebrations and all of this stuff that's going on. What do we say, Barbara? We encourage people to do what? To read the letter from the Birmingham jail again, or for the first time if you haven't read it before. Come on, Barbara. And what about the Nobel Peace Prize?
Hey, you got to watch. I posted on my LinkedIn account at Barbara Arnwine. I posted the full Nobel Peace Prize acceptance speech given by Dr. King. And Dr. King didn't have to take anybody else's award. He got his own award because of his amazing advocacy. And folks, when he accepted the award, he did not accept the award in his name. He accepted the award in the name of all of those who have been fighting for justice and freedom in the United States. He talked about the young girls who had been bombed. He talked about about the water hosing of demonstrators. He talked about the beatings at the Selma Bridge. He talked about, all of these things, and he even gave a shout out to South Africa, which at that time was still under apartheid oppression. And he talked about how critical it is for every single human being alive to do everything they can to fight for justice. Oh, it was an amazing speech. I recommend you go and listen to it. You can just Google it, Dr. King Nobel Prize acceptance speech, and you will see what a true man of character, what a true visionary looks like. And so thank you, Daryl. I'm looking forward to talking tonight to the New Bedford NAACP, the New Brunswick NAACP in New Jersey about Dr. King and about the work of 2026. So thank you, Daryl.
Absolutely, Barbara. And Barbara, when I think about Dr. Martin Luther King and all that he has meant to the world, I know that a lot of folks are celebrating and they're going out and doing community engagement and those types of things in Dr. King's name. But Barbara, we one of the things that Reverend Jackson always talks about, and it's just, when I heard him say it several times, it just stuck with me. And that is that we've got to remember that Dr. King should not be minimized to community engagement because really at his core, he was an activist. It was something about the social engagement side of this. It's great to help other people all of the time, But he was much greater than that because he was going to the core of our democracy, going to the core of our humanity and the calls for what he wanted our country to do and how he wanted the world to look. So let's be certain that we're honoring him in that appropriate way. So it's so great to hear that you're going to be speaking tonight in New Brunswick, New Jersey, because I know you're going to be lifting it up on high with regards to all that he's done. But Barbara, I know that you want to also give a shout out, right, to Indivisible.
Hey, I want to give a shout out to our compatriots, to our wonderful colleagues at Indivisible. Thank you so much because they did something that shows true allyship yesterday. They put out a call to all their members to give to the Transformative Justice Coalition and Black Voters Matters in honor of Dr. King Day, so that we could carry on this work. You know, one thing, I mean, we're just so grateful. Thank you, Indivisible, for that, because that's so rare that organizations urge people to support other organizations when we're all out here raising money to do our work. So thank you for that. And Daryl, while we're at it, one thing I heard Roland Martin say, he gave a beautiful speech in Dallas that I watched this weekend. Yes, folks, you know, I watch other speakers. Yes, I have a lot to learn like everybody else who's alive and in this world. And I love that he pointed out that if you look through the records of Dr. King, you will not find pictures of him at soup kitchens or painting walls, that he understood that his presence required activism, advocacy, you know, hard work. And that's why today, in honor of Dr. King, today in honor of the people of Washington, D.C., today in honor of all of those who are being occupied by National Guards, by ICE, we're asking people to join freedcproject.org's Walk Out on Fascism. So walk out on fascism. We're asking you to be part of that. So from 2 to 4 o'clock today, walk out of your office. Walk out of your job. Walk out of your school. Walk out of whatever you're doing and, you know, go either, you know, to Freedom Plaza and meet people there, or just, you know, take your time. And during that time, do read that letter from the Birmingham jail. During that time, do watch some of Dr. King's speeches. During that time, do make sure that you are making your voice heard, because oppression will always still put its foot on your neck as long as you don't fight, as long as you don't unite and help each other through this time. We need you in those streets. And Daryl, let me say, if you can't do it on Tuesday, today, Friday is the general strike. They're asking people in honor of Renee Good, who was killed and murdered senselessly in Minneapolis. And in response to all of that surge of more police officers, more ICE officers now in Minneapolis than there are police officers, because of this president's just outrageous deportation, his outrageous revenge against blue cities, blue states, his revenge against people of color. Folks, let's do what we need to do. Let's lift up Minneapolis. Let's lift up every place that's occupied. Let's lift up the life of Renee Good, the life of Keith Porter, the life of everyone that has been snuffed out by ICE and kept secret. Folks, let's do what we got to do on Friday. Be sure it's a general strike. That means you do nothing. You shop nowhere unless it's an emergency. That means you don't work. That means you don't go to school. That means you don't do anything. It's a general strike. We stay at home. We say to the business community, stand up for us. Stand up for the American people. Don't just take our money. Stand up for us. Tell this government to stop. It's illegal, unconstitutional, and terroristic policies. Okay, Daryl, to you.
All right, Barbara, and you're right on point, Barbara, because when we talk about Dr. King and being certain that we understand that what this was about and what he was about and what the whole movement was about was activism, that segues right into what we're talking about today on today's show, because we have some college students with us today, Barbara, from North Carolina Agriculture and Technical School College, State University, that did just that. These students from North Carolina A&T, Barbara, let me tell you, North Carolina is preparing for their election in March of this year for the primary election. And so it's been opened up now, and they were allowing early voting sites. So some of the students, we're going to let them tell the story about what they did at North Carolina A&T University to ask for the early voting site and what happened as a response to that request. It's really interesting because we here at TJC, we go around the country and we encourage HBCUs, we encourage all colleges and universities to ask the students to get involved in the voting process, and that's exactly what went on here. So, folks, let us bring up our guest that we have here today to talk about this issue and talk about voting and the challenges and barriers that are faced for young voters across our country. The title of our show today is HBCU Battle for Early Voting Site, Manipulative Barriers to Student Voting in 2026. And Barbara, we're so excited to have with us for their first appearance here on Igniting Change Radio, Aniya Marshall. Aniya, you there?
Yes, I am, and I am here along with Olu as well.
Hi, everybody. My name is Olu Rouse. I'm one of the lead organizers for this whole movement.
And Aniya Marshall is a sophomore student at North Carolina A&T. She's an honors political science major. She's a business finance minor. She was part of Elevate Her, where she was the social action chair. She carried and was on the chancellor's list for 3 consecutive years with a 3.75 grade point average, Barbara. She supported campus initiatives to increase student engagement in local elections. Barbara, what an incredible stuff that Aniya has done. Similarly, Barbara, we have Olu Roos. And Olu is a February 1 scholar. He's an honors student at North Carolina A&T State University. He's majoring in economics and political science. He intends to pursue a PhD in economics. In 2024, Barbara, he was the president of the Aggie Economic Association at State University, of course, North Carolina A&T State University. He's an emerging fellow with the Roosevelt Network, a 2024 Forge Fellow, working, Barbara, with doing research on reparation programs in the United States. And, Barbara, this is the part I know you're going to love. In 2025 and 2026, he is and is a fellow with the RFK Human Rights and the John Lewis Young Leaders Fellow Program. Olu Roos,
all right now.
welcome. And Barbara, I think Kayla is with us. Would you like to bring her up?
Oh, why don't you go ahead, Daryl?
Okay. We also have with us Kayla Jackson. Kayla Jackson is a graduate of the STEM Early College at North Carolina A&T State University. She's a major in architectural engineering. Her minor is in construction management. Her future goal is to obtain a master's degree and to become a licensed architect. And she, too, was part of this movement. Welcome, Kayla Jackson.
Hi, Kayla.
All right.
Welcome. All right.
Can't hear you if you're on mute. Come on off mute if you can, Kayla. And is Zayveon Davis with us?
Yes, I am. How are y'all?
All right. Welcome, Zayveon. Barbara, Zayveon is an honors College of Business and Economics scholar.
Wow.
Also known as COBE. He's a business management student. He's at North Carolina A&T. He's a part of their Society of Human Resource Management president. He's the public policy advocate. He was a voter advocacy person that was there. He's part of the GOTV Voter Excitement Workshop that he co-led. So, incredible opportunities and accomplishments that all of these students already have over at North Carolina A&T University. Our last student, then we're going to go into the question, our last person that's with us today, Barbara, is, we can't do anything with young people without having a TJC fellow involved now.
You know it. You know that.
Andreas is back with us. He's now the Deputy Organizing Director at People Power for Florida. He's with the Board of Directors, or was with the Board of Directors with the Youth Action Fund, the Florida. He's the former Florida Democratic Party Campaign Committee Chair. He's a BS in political science from Florida State University. He's the Hispanic Scholarship Founding Scholar. He also was the former president and founder of Florida PIRG, student at Florida State University. Andreas, welcome back.
Thank you so much for having me, Attorney Jones, and it's always a pleasure to be on this show. Hi, and thank you again, Dr. Arnwine, for having me.
Oh, it's an honor to have all of you. What an incredible star bench. This is what I call the A-team, Daryl. You have assembled the A-team for this great show for today.
And
Kayla?
Olu, Kayla's made it? Kayla, can you hear us?
Yes, I'm here.
All right. Welcome aboard.
All right, great.
We certainly welcome you. We did your introduction a little earlier, but we're certainly excited to have you with us. So, Olu, let's open with you, man. What's happening down at North Carolina A&T University? Y'all going after the State Board of Elections. What's happening, Olu?
Yes, so this has actually been a very long process, and it dates back a lot earlier than just what has happened in the past week. Late in 2023 was when we first started advocating, but we first got a polling site for our early voting site on campus. We had advocated something very similar to what we did this past week at the Guilford County Board of Elections meeting. And in the 3-2 decision, they gave us our polling site, and so we had a polling site for all of 2024. And a lot of students were able to vote for the first time at that point. That was my first time voting at that polling site, and issue their ballot for the presidential election at that polling site. Then come 2025, we did not have a polling site for our municipal elections, but that made more sense since that's a smaller election. But with the gravity of the situation of the 2026 midterm election, we knew that we had to get out and get our polling site back. And so on November 18th, we had over 60 students show up to the Guilford County Board of Elections to advocate for our polling site. And in the 3-2 decision, that was decided in less than 15 minutes. They decided to remove our polling site. Some other things that were said during that meeting is the chair of the Guilford County Board of Elections told us that it was not within our rights to vote, and it was simply just a privilege. And so that was very disheartening for a lot of students. A lot of students were angered. And we told them that day that we were not going to give up. And so we showed up this past week to the State Board of Elections as they made their decision. And again, we showed up with over 50 students. We had over 50 students travel over an hour to Raleigh, North Carolina from Greensboro, North Carolina to advocate for this polling site. It was the second day of class, so students and it was at 9 a.m. in the morning, so students very much had other things that they could have been doing, but we all decided to show up. And they still, despite that, took away our polling site, mocked us during the meeting, told us that, or threatened to call the Capitol Police on us. And again, it was another very disheartening experience for us all. And through this whole process, they have denied us the opportunity to have public comment and voice our concerns about this, which is why we created signs. And when we showed them our signs and simply try to ask questions again, they threatened to call the police on us. So that's kind of where we're at right now, deciding our game plans for next steps and the like.
And so, Olu, when you said they mocked you during the public meeting, what did they do during the public meeting to mock you?
So after they made their decision, the board was talking amongst themselves, and one of the board members that voted in our favor had voiced their concerns about the majority's decision, and the majority had said something along the lines of like they want to, or it was like they were like, or in a very like high pitched voice, kind of saying like, "Oh, we want a polling site, we want a polling site," and mocking how our advocacy efforts to gain our polling site back.
Well, I want to remind everyone of a quote. It's often attributed to Mohandas Gandhi during the fight for Indian independence, but it's actually a quote that comes from Nicholas Klein, who was a trade union activist, and he said in 1918, first they ignore you, then they ridicule you, and then they attack you and want to burn you, and then they build monuments to you. Gandhi said, first they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you, then you win. So never forget that's part of the playbook of oppression, is to always, laugh at you, to ridicule you, to ignore you, to act like you have no power. And the only times they start respecting us is when we show them that we actually have the power. Right, Daryl?
Absolutely. And Aniya, I'm listening to this story, and I'm just trying to piece this together. So, what Olu laid out was that in 2024, the polling place was on the campus. Is that right?
That is correct.
So what happened from and let's be clear, A&T, North Carolina A&T is the largest HBCU in the United States by population. So what, it's 10,000 students or so that are there? And so
yes, exactly. Yes. Sorry.
So walk me through this, the difference between 2024 and now 2026. I don't get it.
So fortunately, I was a freshman during this time attending the campus, and I actually had the privilege to take part in my first election while our polling site was on the campus. The school organizations, our social action organizations on the campus did a very well job with making sure students were registered to vote, making sure, we were excited to go get out there and vote, making sure we knew the knowledge, our candidates, every piece of information that we needed to know that was in regard to voting, our campus made sure that we knew. And then on top of that, because we were able to have our polling site on the campus, it made having to figure out the specificities of whether, like, where I need to go to vote, it just took all of that pressure away. With that being said, like you said, we are the largest HBCU on the campus, and we actually have about 15,000 students on our campus. Unfortunately, the issue is not voting registration. A lot of people are registered to vote on our campus. However, data shows that only 700 students voted within our early polling site, so in the primary election. So with that being said, I think the main thing is that even though students are registered to vote, the issue is getting them out there and actually voting, and that's where we are finding the lack in, is actually getting the students out there to vote. And I think with the State Board of Elections seeing that, they notice that lack in numbers and make it seem like there is no purpose to have the election polling site on our campus.
And
well, yeah, go ahead, Barbara.
No, you go ahead. Mm-hmm.
And so, Kayla, if once the early voting site has been moved, the polling place has been moved off the campus, where now must students go? What's the closest place for students to be able to vote? And I assume, I went to an HBCU. Our first year or so, you weren't even permitted to have a vehicle on campus. How do students make it to the polling place? How close is the polling place, and how do students access it?
So the closest polling site. Oh, that's.
Sorry, I can take that one. Hello?
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
sure.
Go ahead.
Yes. So, our closest polling site is now the Guilford County Courthouse. which is, in terms of a drive, I believe 5 minutes, around 5 minute drive from campus. But in terms of walking, I believe it's between 20 and 30 minute walk from campus.
Wow.
Wow. And that's each way. And that doesn't include standing in line if you have to stand in line to vote. That's incredible. And so, what are you guys going to do now? That you've been denied this access. How are you going to get students to the polling places? What's the plan?
So right now, we're talking with a lot of organizations because thankfully we've received a lot of support, a lot of national coverage of our issue, and it's been very nice to see that people are standing with us. People are seeing that this is disenfranchisement and suppression, and so we are trying to gather in that support to kind of support, one, the immediate issues of getting students out to the polls and getting students transportation to our polling site, since it is about a 30-minute walk down back and forth. And so we're trying to coordinate with our local community organizations to try to find that kind of transportation. And in the long run, we have a lot more plans to kind of, again, build this community and build this movement of securing our polling site and securing polling sites for colleges all across, or colleges and HBCUs, especially all across North Carolina, because we don't see this happening with Chapel Hill every single election cycle. We don't see this happening with NC State every single election cycle. It's always us that have to fight every single election cycle to have our polling site, and so we want to kind of institutionalize this process and make sure that we don't have to constantly fight for it, and that we build these relationships with our Board of Elections and kind of sustain those policy conversations about having our polling site as a permanent site.
Has the university been supportive of you guys? I mean, has the university gotten behind you? Are they going to, make vans or anything accessible, or transportation for students that want to go vote? What has been the response of the university?
So this past Tuesday, their university had no involvement in that. That was purely student run. But generally, the university does support civic engagement efforts and we have an Office of Leadership and Civic Engagement that tries to encourage students to get out to the polls. And so I think that they will resume their usual functions of trying to get students out to the polls, and that will obviously help our cause as well. However, as far as like organizing and trying to advocate, that's really just student-led because of the way that ANC is a public university, and so politically they are tied to the same people that have made the decision to remove our polling site. And so we want to make sure that we keep those two things separate and ensure that our university can remain functioning while we do this advocacy efforts as students, leaders.
Could you repeat? You said one thing, and maybe I misheard you. Did you say that with regards to the people that were in charge of determining whether or not to have a polling place removed, did you say that the university had some role in that?
They don't have a role in it per se, but all public universities within North Carolina are under the UNC college system, and that system is ran by the same political powerhouses that are running all of North Carolina. And so those are the same political powerhouses that are running the State Board of Elections. And it's actually really interesting because last year our Republican-led legislature had voted to switch who decides who's on County Board of Elections. They switched it from the governor, which has in the past years been a generally Democratic governor, to the state auditor, which at the time and currently is a Republican. And so they switched it to the Republican state auditor, and they appointed 3-2 majorities on all of the Board of Elections throughout all of North Carolina's 100 counties. And so this isn't just a problem that Guilford County and Greensboro and North Carolina A&T is facing. This is a North Carolina-wide problem of the Republican Party creating an unfair election system and an unfair democratic system that shifts the power in their favor.
Wow.
And Barbara, I know you want to bring Andreas in. Barbara?
Oh, absolutely. Andreas, you have fought this fight in Florida, and also you have spoken about this nationwide, about this fight for college campuses to have polling sites. Let's talk about that battle. Andreas, when you hear what they're going through in North Carolina right now, what comes foremost to your mind?
Absolutely. So I want to start by, really pointing out that having voter accessible campuses is not just something that makes it easier for young people to vote. It's actually a legal requirement. The Higher Education Act of 1965 was passed in 1965, requiring for institutions to distribute voter registration forms to students and provide equitable access to voter registration sites in the community. And so for college campuses to play an active role in either removing those sites or preventing students from having access to those sites is just the same battle that students have been facing everywhere in our country. Students have been fighting for access to accessible voting locations for many, many years. This is not something that is exclusive to Florida or to North Carolina. It is part of a broader strategy by the forces at hand that seek to disenfranchise and take away the voices of young people. Here in Florida, we have had – it took us many years for us to get a voting location on our campus. For many, many years prior to me being on campus, our voting location was a mile off of campus. It was simply not accessible to students. It was nowhere near any of the dormitories. It was not near any major points of contact for students. It was just a small building nearly a mile off of our campus. And so for us, it took years of building relationships with our local supervisor of elections, fighting the bureaucratic red tape that our institution put in front of us, and getting on-campus student support for us to finally, after nearly 3.5 years of organizing, to get our voter registration location on our campus.
And you said something so powerful there, that this is not accidental. This is not just one board making a decision, that this is a nationwide, plan of voter suppression for students. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about Cleta Mitchell, right? Her famous speech that she gave in Virginia, I think no more than a year and a half ago, at which she said that the number one thing that the Republican Party needed to do, or the GOP needed to do in order to suppress the vote, was to attack, voting on student campuses. I mean, voting by students on college campuses. And she actually said, Daryl, you wanna paraphrase, or Andreas, you want to paraphrase what she actually said about students voting?
Oh, yeah. I mean, she didn't want students to be able to simply roll out of bed, cast the vote, and roll back into their dormitory and go back to sleep, Barbara.
That was her characterization. And to all our guests, when you hear that, how do you react to that, Zayveon? How do you react to that, Kayla? How do you react to that, everybody, when you hear that that's the mentality that they are using to justify taking away the ability of students to vote?
I can go. My reaction that I try to use is, it's not the first time we've dealt with this, and hopefully it will be the last, but likely this will be the last time we have to do this fight. But for me, my kind of reaction and response to it was, and I also kind of had this in my mind during the Board of Elections meeting, was a lot of what they hid behind was, people aren't going out to vote on Sundays, or your polling site is, not used as much as the other polling sites throughout the city. And so my thing is, okay, they're hiding behind a strategy of of legitimacy and logistics. Like Secretary Green, he talked about trying to staff these polling places and wanting to give the people who work these polling sites a break on Sundays. But so my kind of strategy in response to that was, okay, how do we remove from their hands the ability to hide behind legitimacy? And that includes, how do we get everybody out to these polling sites? What does the push look like for poll workers? Because if we have dedicated poll workers, if it is shown time and time again that this polling site is used constantly, they can no longer hide behind legitimacy to take away our polling site, and they have to face that decision up front if they decide to take.
Yes. Kayla, did you have a reaction to that? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I just wanted to add on that, like, it also just kind of reminds us that, like, it's a group effort. We also have to have, because we had signs that also said, like, we are willing to work our own polling sites. Like, it's all a group effort. We have to be willing to put ourselves somewhere to make something happen for everyone. So that's just, like, what came to my mind first. But, like, yeah, no, we have to remind them that it's not always about the money. It's not always about what you think is possible, because we can make anything possible if you allow us to continue doing what we've always done best, and that is show up for one another.
Amen. And Aniya, just based on all of what you've experienced, and hearing Nikita Mitchell and this, as Andreas pointed out, this, coordinated the campaign to try to attack student voting. What do you have? I mean, what do you have to say to this, attack?
So my main thing, kind of piggybacking on what Zayveon and Kayla have both said, is that one thing A&T students know how to do is show up. And we're going to show up, and we're going to for the things that we feel like is necessary to have on our campus. I want to say that one of the board members made a claim to show that, obviously we have some type of accessibility if we are able to band together 50-plus students and all drive an hour plus to, advocate for having our polling site on our campus. But to me personally, I feel like it is not necessary, especially in this day and age. You have to sacrifice so much just in order to show why it is important for students to be able to have easier access to vote. Mind you, we just got back from winter break. This was our second day of classes. A lot of us had to skip class in order to be here. We had to create signs. We had to petition. We had to sacrifice other things that would contribute to our academic excellence in order to save our student democracy. And so I understand, Aggie showing up and showing out, but it should not necessarily be that hard.
Mm-hmm. And Olu, one of the questions I have for you down in North Carolina, a lot of folks that listen to the show are down in North Carolina. I mean, there are quite a few of folks that listen to the show that are in North Carolina. Is there something that's being put in place where if they're either, Aggie alumni or folks in North Carolina that say, I want to support what's happening with these students, that I can support them? Is there any consideration to how folks can be supportive?
Yes, we are still trying to gather together our final plan, but I already have a couple of ways that everybody can get involved. For starters, everybody can follow at Protect Ours NC on Instagram. Again, that's PROTECTOURSNC on Instagram. That's kind of the Instagram page that we're going to be using to broadcast updates as well as just expand our advocacy efforts. On that Instagram as well, in our bio, there is a link to a fundraiser that we have started to kind of raise funds to support, again, getting students transportation to the polling site, as well as supporting get out the vote efforts on our campus to make sure that students are getting to these polls and exercising their votes. And so everybody can go there. We also are coordinating a few events. We are going to try to have a march tentatively scheduled for February 13th. But of course, if you follow the Instagram page, the information about the march will be posted there. And so definitely a lot of ways that people within the community and within North Carolina can get involved.
That's awesome.
Fantastic. And Aniya, one of the things that, when Barbara and I were talking about what was happening down there and going through the stories, I think both of us probably almost fell off our chairs as we were talking on the phone, and we read that they were trying to cut or have cut Souls to the Polls Sunday voting hours as a result of what was happening there, too. Aniya, if I read this correctly, because, sometimes, I think I must be making things up in my head. I can't be reading what I'm seeing in the newspaper. But one of the folks said that Sunday was the Lord's Day and folks shouldn't be voting on the Lord's Day. Aniya, help me with that.
So, yes, religion was tied to voting very heavily within this meeting. And, church and state are supposed to be separate. But, in these types of situations, you had counties coming to this meeting and explaining how sometimes people need this Sunday in order to vote because they work throughout the week. This is the only time they get off. And it just makes accessibility, easier for them. Unfortunately, the council members did not see the necessity in having Sunday voting because it is for the Lord's Day. But then when you counteract their claim by saying, okay, you can watch Sunday football on Sunday, that has nothing to do with the Lord. You can go shopping on Sunday, that has nothing to do with the Lord. But then why, when it comes to voting, that's somehow a bigger issue. They felt like it was kind of pulling their workers thin by allowing them to work on Sunday. But when it came to any other situation that necessarily had nothing to do with the Lord on Sunday, they found no issue other than when it came to voting.
So, Andreas, let me get this right. The football players can work on Sunday. McDonald's workers can work on Sunday, and you can all go and support all that. You can go over to the store, to the mall on Sunday, and support everybody that's working over there. You just can't go vote on Sunday at these places in North Carolina. Andreas, classic voter suppression, isn't that what we talk about?
Absolutely, yeah. It is a classic example of voter suppression, the closing down of voting locations, the shortening of early voting access days. All of those are textbook examples of voter suppression that we're seeing. And I really want to commend the organizers at North Carolina A&T. Now is not the time for us to, do slow-moving work, waiting to go through the proper channels. Now is the time for us to be organizing and organizing aggressively. We are at a point now in our country's history where we have to be consistently vigilant of the threats of fascism on our political system, on our voting system, and for us to allow for any voting location or for any university to lose access to a voting location is absolutely unacceptable, and it does a real disservice to us for future elections.
And Daryl, let me, as a North Carolina licensed attorney, let me just take people back a little bit. If you're listening to this story of the students and what they're going through in North Carolina A&T, and you're thinking, well, that just sounds like some isolated mess, honey, I want you to listen to me, because in 2016, the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals that covers, most of a lot of the southern states, including North Carolina, had a decision that they rendered on July 29th of 2016 called North Carolina State Conference of the NAACP versus McCrory. That decision held that the state legislature of North Carolina had purposefully discriminated against black voters. And as evidence, they cited the expert testimony that showed that the state legislature had actually paid for the provision of racial data And what the question was that they asked for their experts to show in that racial data was what were the preferred methods of voting by black people in North Carolina. And they did a whole list of it: early voting, souls to the polls, and they also asked, what were their weaknesses? And they said, voter ID, et cetera, et cetera. They asked, what were the preferred methods of voting for white voters? They actually went that crazy, and they listed, what white voters preferred. And as a consequence of that data, they then drew up what we call the Big Ugly Bill. That, yes, I know there's another one now that was in Congress, but that was the original Big Ugly Bill. And they actually passed laws to ban everything that black voters like to do. And the court held, and this language is used all the time in different cases, is that they targeted black voters with surgical precision. And that is the reality. That case was appealed. They sought, review by the Supreme Court in 2017, and the Supreme Court refused to review it for many, many reasons, including how bad the facts were in this case that showed, this deliberate and purposeful racial discrimination. It sounds to me, Daryl, that this is McCrory Rado. It sounds like we're back, right? This is another. When they're talking about banning, souls to the polls voting, the court found that all of these excuses that they came up with about participation, et cetera, were pretextual, meaning that they were all just, proffered without of proof. In fact, in the very hearings that you got thrown out of, I understand that in reading the data on that hearing is that they actually had data showing that more blacks voted on Sunday in these counties that they were talking about stripping Sunday souls to the polls voting. It sounds to me, Daryl, that there's yet, in addition to the activism, there's some other recourses that need to be taken here.
Absolutely, Barbara, and certainly, post this call, let's talk to Olu and Aniya and Kayla and Zayveon and try to see if we can get them lined up with legal counsel that's down there in North Carolina that may be willing to work with them. I know, we have all kinds of activist groups that are down there, from Carolina for All to a whole bunch of other contacts that would be in place to be able to work with you all down at A&T University to be certain that you are being, certainly represented by the larger community to support the efforts that you're putting forward. So absolutely, Barbara, that's a great point, because it certainly appears as though there's a lot of surgical precision that's going on here from this board. Although, one of the things that was noted in the articles that we read, and Aniya or Kayla or Ola or Zayveon, if you'd like to jump in on this, was that it appeared as though the process in North Carolina for the early voting site, it went initially to a county commissioner or something along that line that makes a decision, and then it went to the State Board of Elections. With the State Board of Elections, it recently changed over from it appeared to be a majority Democratic State Board of Elections to now a majority conservative Republican State Board of Elections. Is that accurate?
Yes, that is accurate, and that speaks to what I was kind of trying to explain earlier about how the Republican Party has really in the past year done a very calculated effort to shift the power of boards of elections all across North Carolina from majority Democratic leadership towards Republican leadership, and that has led to a lot of what we're facing right now.
Okay. And so as we start the process of winding down this show, Kayla, if people want to get in contact with you, how do they get in contact with you? If they want to become active down there, how do they become active? What are your closing words here, Kayla?
So So I first of all encourage people to follow the Instagram, and then we also have an email for Protect Ours. I'm going to go ahead and say that so anyone can reach out to us via that way. It's Protect Ours SNC, and it's all one word, @gmail.com. And that email will also be on our Instagram page @ProtectOursNC. And they can reach us via either of those, either a DM, but preferably by email so we can keep everything in one place. But yes.
And Aniya, same question to you. How do people contact you? They've heard this powerful sister, Aniya Marshall, who's a sophomore student down there at A&T University. I need to contact her. I need her to talk to some of the other students and other programs and young people that I've encountered. And Aniya, if in your remarks you could also touch on, I think there are other universities that were also impacted by this decision. Aniya?
Yes. So, I'm flattered if anybody would like to reach out to me. However, we do prefer that we keep communication all centralized. So if you could either contact protectoursnc@gmail.com or the Instagram @protectoursnc. With the other campuses that may or may not be going through this, I know as of now, we have our main thing was just trying to make sure that UNCG and North Carolina A&T got the polling site that they deserve, and that was what we were trying to be active in doing within this past Tuesday.
But we also are trying to grow a movement.
Sorry,
I got cut off. But we are also trying to grow a movement, start a movement, and continue everything that we've been doing, because, again, this is not – we realize and understand that this isn't just a North Carolina A&T and UNCG issue, and that this is an issue that can face every single county within our state and every single college campus. And so in the next year, we do plan on trying to kind of grow this, institutionalize this movement, and make sure that our North Carolina colleges and our North Carolina Black community has access to the polls.
Nice.
Okay. Now, yeah. Was that Olu speaking? Or Zayveon?
Olu.
Olu.
Yeah.
I know we're coming up on the end of the show, and I know listeners will want to know the answer to this question. How did that A&T was focused on this, but like Duke was not? Is there a polling station? Is there a polling place at Duke University?
I'm not quite sure there's a polling place at Duke. I just haven't done the research, but I do know that, like, typically, you just never hear about these issues at Duke, UNC Chapel Hill, or NC State, which are our biggest institutions. So, I mean, it is very concerning, and in the 2022 election, I believe, they cracked our district and kind of separated the student vote so that it would be diluted. They have always tried to target A&T's vote because they are afraid of what our voting bloc can do, and they are afraid of what power students have to turn elections in the favor of the people. And so I think that, again, this is all very much a calculated effort, and everything that is going on is with intention and purpose. And so I think that something I always hear and that I'm always told by my advisors and my mentors is that they wouldn't try to take it away if it wasn't important, if it didn't mean something. And that may be what we're seeing on other campuses where they just don't see the same urgency and need, but that is what we're seeing on our campus.
Well, I can tell you that Barbara, as a Dookie, I can almost guarantee you she's going to be on the phone trying to find out what's going on at Duke and about them being supportive of what's happening at A&T. Andreas, your closing remarks, your closing words about student voting and any message you have for the A&T Aggies that are pushing down there.
Absolutely. I will close with this. Student organizers have played a critical role in shaping what our campuses look like. Here at FSU, we have a really rich history of student organizers dating all the way back to the Freedom Riders here in Tallahassee. And so I want to really encourage the organizers at North Carolina A&T or any student who is organizing on their campus and is seeking to make some type of substantive change. There is always going to be a way for you to accomplish this. It may take a year or 2 years, 3 years, even 5 years for you to accomplish what you want, but as long as you are fighting and organizing and maintaining the community as the highest point of order for you, you will be successful in the work that you are doing. Here at Florida State, it may have taken us 3 years to get our voting location and an appropriate location on our campus, but it has already made all the difference for our students. Knowing that they can wake up, roll out of bed, go to vote, and go back to bed makes all the difference for students. Having that ease of access is exactly what we need, and students everywhere should be fighting for that kind of access on their campus.
There you go. And Daryl, let me just, before we close, let me say to Aniya, to Zayveon, to Kayla, to Andreas, to Olu, you know who's looking down on you and smiling. His name is Dr. Martin Luther King. And he's saying, stay with it, children. Come on, keep on fighting. He's saying, thank you for continuing my tradition of standing up against injustice. He is absolutely, his spirit lives on in you and more. And we could talk about Ella Baker and so many others whose spirits are just happy today because you are on the battlefield. Thank you, Daryl.
You're absolutely right, Barbara. As you all stand up for voting rights, as you stand up for civil rights, as you stand up for student rights, you are standing on the shoulders of Harriet Tubman. You're standing on the shoulders of John Lewis. You are standing on all those shoulders that are now looking at you and what you're doing and saying, that's right, you got the message, you got the assignment, and you're carrying it forward. They're so appreciative of it. Folks, we say all the time at the Transformative Justice Coalition that we invest in our young folk because we know our young folk are the ones that will carry the torch and move it forward and will move democracy forward. Well, that's what they're doing at North Carolina A&T University. They're trying to move democracy forward. They're trying to be certain that the students there have access to their voting power and they're not disconnected from that voting power. So we encourage you, wherever you are, to if all you can do is send a prayer of covering over these students. Send a prayer of hopefulness to these students and be certain to that whatever you can do to support them, that you do. But don't stop there. We encourage you to also support the Transformative Justice Coalition. Go to tjcoalition.org, tjcoalition.org, and support us. Support us financially. Support us. Send a book our way so we can send the banned book to the students somewhere around the country as we go out and we protest and we stand up for voting rights across the country. Folks, every Tuesday we're here, and as we like to say, take a page from the North Carolina A&T Aggies. They got off the sidewalk, they got into the streets, they got in good trouble. We encourage you to do the same, folks. Get off the sidewalk, get into the streets, get into some good trouble, and until next Tuesday, noon, Eastern Standard Time. Peace, everybody.
Peace.
The views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the host and guests and do not necessarily reflect the views of Urban One Incorporated, Radio